Will Hurd of Texas. As I said, the only Republican representing any part of the border. You're joining me from San Antonio. Nice to see you, sir. Happy July 4th weekend.
Hey, thanks, Chuck. I appreciate you being on.
Let me start with what the Inspector General's report said of these border facilities. Serious overcrowding, 31% of children held longer than 72 hours. Adults have been given wet wipes to maintain personal hygiene. Some single adults were held in standing room only conditions. That's just the government and what they've admitted here. As you know, in the New York Times today about Clint, that facility in Clint, Texas, in your district, here's their description. Outbreaks of scabies, shingles, and chickenpox were spreading among the hundreds of children who were being held in cramped cells, agents said. The stench of the children's dirty clothing was so strong, it spread to the agents' own clothing. The children cried constantly. One girl seemed likely enough to try to kill herself that the agents made her sleep on a cot in front of them so they could watch her as they were processing new arrivals. Congressman, I know you're not happy with these conditions either, but at this point, do we need to stop this, and how do we stop it?
Well, and in that New York Times report, that is the agents telling the New York Times reporter, these facilities shouldn't hold anybody for any length of time, let alone children. We should be handling people with care and humanity when they are in our custody. But, you know, the IG report, which you were talking about, that came out, I think it was on July 3rd, there was also an IG report in May talking about these facilities were not prepared for the load that they were having to deal with. And these are temporary facilities, and unfortunately the solution here is we need ICE and HHS to have additional resources, especially when it comes to caring for children. HHS is the federal entity designed to handle children. Border Patrol, because of the Flores settlement, is supposed to have these children ready to transfer within 72 hours. Right now they're having them ready within 42 hours. But ICE and HHS doesn't have the capacity in order to take folks. And it's unfortunate, you know, when you know, many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle voted against an amendment that I put forward, about $2 billion more for HHS to deal with this crisis. They voted against that. I tried to get 100 more judicial teams because the backlog of these immigration cases, we have 900,000 people that are still trying to get through the system. We should be able to get an immigration case done within 9 months. They voted against judicial, increasing the judges.
But isn't the issue here that the Democrats have are really not with your amendment, but it's a lack of trust of the Trump administration? They don't. You could make a strong argument that the decision to pull aid from the Central American countries, which I know you're a huge critic of, but to pull that aid, to create family separation, that they've made the problem worse. And so the lack of trust that they can handle this when you have an administration that clearly is micromanaging things. I mean, how many I would sit here and say, do you have confidence in the leadership? Everybody's acting, right? There's no confirmed member anywhere, it seems, in this process.
Chuck, that's absolutely a problem. The number of acting folks, are they willing to make tough decisions when we need to? And so, yes, there is a lack of trust between congressional Democrats and the executive branch, but that doesn't change the reality that we're dealing with right now. Facilities, people that are overwhelmed. Border Patrol is not, they weren't trained in order to handle children like this. They weren't trained for the medical issues that they're seeing. They were trained to be in between our ports of entry and grab people and apprehend people that are coming into our country illegally. But some of the things that we need to do to fix this, I've said many times, we should nominate and select a special representative for the Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, to work with those three countries on the root causes, which is violence, extreme poverty, and lack of economic opportunity in those countries. We should be making sure that OPIC, USAID, and State Department resources, we shouldn't be decreasing resources in them. We should be increasing
but Congressman,
those resources.
You're at odds with the administration here. They seem to have no interest in that. How do you convince
and that's why
does the president reach out to you for advice on this, or no?
He hasn't reached out personally, but I have many conversations with folks throughout the administration. I'm going to continue to articulate the solutions. You know, the other thing that we're not focusing on, not enough people are focusing on, is human smuggling. I spent almost a decade as an undercover officer in the CIA. I chased terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda, prevented, intelligence services from stealing our secrets, put nuclear weapon proliferators out of business. These human smugglers, people that are coming through our southern border, are coming through a human smuggler. We have their phone numbers. We have license plates of buses that have moved people from Tegucigalpa to El Paso. We need to make sure that countering human smuggling is a national intelligence priority, so that we have the CIA, the NSA, the FBI working with our allies in those countries to stop those root causes there. They're the ones that are facilitating these perilous journeys for young women, for kids, and for these families, and we're not putting nearly enough attention on that in order to dismantle the infrastructure that is moving people here illegally. And then also we should be streamlining legal immigration, right? I had a proposal. It was the only bipartisan immigration proposal out there to streamline legal immigration, so people that want to come, the United States of America has benefited from the brain drain of every other country for the last couple of decades. Let's continue that, and let's benefit from the hard-working drain as well, too. But let's do it legally.
Okay. Let me ask you about the census and the Supreme Court decision, and then the president's attempt essentially to go around the Supreme Court. Where are you on the citizenship question? Do you think it should have been added or not?
Well, I think that the Supreme Court has ruled. I think we can't wait. We need to make sure we accurately count everybody. An accurate count is important for cities, for counties.
So you are against,
it's important
sounds like you are
for
against
resources.
The citizenship question because it could lead to a miscount.
Well, we don't want there to be a miscount, for sure. Everybody needs to be counted. I'm also concerned that does the Census Bureau have the right technical capabilities to protect the information that is being collected? I used to serve on the committee that oversaw this in the last Congress, and there was problems with their cybersecurity defense, and so we have a lot of broader problems. So the Supreme Court has ruled. Let's move forward. We shouldn't stall the census, and we need to make sure that the information we're collecting is protected.
I want to ask you about somebody who you have voted with a few times against your own party, and that's Justin Amash, who is no longer a member of the Republican Party. Here's what he wrote on Independence Day, declaring his independence. The founders envisioned Congress as a deliberative body in which outcomes are discovered. We are fast approaching the point, however, where Congress exists as little more than a formality to legitimize outcomes dictated by the President, the Speaker of the House, and the Senate Majority Leader. Number one, is Amash right? And have you thought about leaving the Republican Party?
Well, it's unfortunate that Justin believes that the party is not big enough for his position and his ideas. I think the Republican Party should be a broad party. I shouldn't be the only African-American Republican in the House of Representatives.
You had a pretty colorful quote to the Washington Blade where your advice to Republicans was, don't be an expletive, don't be a homophobe, things like that.
Absolutely. Look, we need to make sure the Republican Party is growing. Just look at my state of Texas, ruby red Texas. It's actually purple. Just because we don't have a statewide elected Democrat doesn't mean that we aren't purple. And I've been telling people, if we want to keep a Republican Party in Texas, the Republican Party in Texas needs to start looking like Texas. And I think this is, that goes for the rest of the country as well. But we have an opportunity, because I know independents and center-left Democrats are concerned with the direction of the Democratic Party, and we have an opportunity to intrigue those folks that are interested in solving problems in the future by empowering people and not governments.
Will Hurd, Republican from Texas, as I said, the only Republican that represents a district on the border. Thanks for coming on and sharing your views, sir. Much appreciated.
Of course, Chuck. Take care.
When we come